Did everybody have a good lunch?
Sure. Yes.
As I had hoped, I'm really happy. I'm very happy that people got the chance for a little one-on-one lunch break time. I always think that's beneficial. So welcome back. I just have a couple more little, you're going to laugh at how stupid these things are, but it's important stuff to pick up. And after that, then we can have some more discussion about, what we were talking about right before lunch of what are we actually going to do and how are we going to do that? So it's going to be kind of your show from here. So.
1 second.
Okay. I started without Eric.
Someone is saying we don't have.
Rich,
Can you hear
Rich is
audio?
about to be back.
See, we are trying to make sure everyone in Zoom can hear. Can you hear me now?
We have to do this
good
again.
Now? Okay, Anne, can you test your mic?
Test for Zoom people. Can you hear me?
Okay, we should be good now.
Okay. And Rich is on his way back? Okay. So, Eric, advance me to the next slide. And then, and keep going, because we've got a few. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Okay. So this is important to some people. So again, this is a direction that we were given by the legislation. So legislators, and remember there will be 4 of them that are non-voting members, they get reimbursed to travel to these meetings through the legislative process. So they have their own deal. If you are here representing, if you're an elected official or representing a government agency or representing your employer or representing an organization, then you are not eligible for travel reimbursement. But if you are not either of those other things, so kind of like if you're a citizen representative, then you are eligible for a reimbursement. We've got forms and a process to do that. So rather than call everybody out on whether you get paid to do this or not, if you're not sure if you get a reimbursement or not, and you want to figure out if you do and how you do it, then just meet with staff here and we can get together with you and make sure that we're all set for that. Okay. Next steps, I think, is what I have then. Okay. So I had anticipated that, as I said, governor's office thinks that the rest of their appointments will be done probably in September. So I had anticipated that the next meeting might be in September or October. But once again, that'll be up to you to the extent that you all want to drive that, or if you want to give it to staff and, so say, and you guys set up the meeting and the location. We'll be here to help, but that's kind of driven by you when we're ready. We've got some more information to give you for your binders, so we'll keep sending that, and as we go through this process, we'll keep updating that. But I think reading through all of the past information so you've got a good feeling of what we already know and what's been out there. And then look through the charter from the CAC group or charters of other groups or other kinds of work rules or anything like that, so you get an idea of what you want to talk about, what you want to bring to the table when it comes to creating your own work rules. And then the only other thing I wanted to say, right before lunch we were talking about consultants and the budget that goes along with that. But I want you to be aware, that there are several subject matter experts that want to come and talk to you that are not, people that we have to pay for. They're not consultants or anything like that. Like, for example, there is a group within WashDOT that's working on a new high-speed rail proposal that will go from Vancouver, BC to Eugene, basically along the I-5 corridor. they know that their work will be connecting with the work of this group. And so they're ready to come and make a presentation to this group whenever you're ready to talk to them. Similarly, people at JBLM, that's Joint Base Lewis McChord, that have concerns about airspace in their area, they would like to come and talk to the group about military airspace throughout Washington State. I've talked with FAA about, we probably want to have you come talk to the group, excuse me, about, questions about FAA funding, or what is FAA going to do if we get to the point that Sea-Tac's just not working anymore, and those kinds of things. So there's a lot of subject matter experts that are out there that you may want to hear from and that want you to hear from them, that I think would be a part of future agendas, is just hearing from people. So it doesn't all have to be paid consultants. There's just people out there that want to be involved. And there's people that I've talked to who have applied to be on the work group and didn't get appointed by the governor. And those people, I've said, if you're representing, an airline coalition or, rail users or something like that, there may be an opportunity for you to present to the group as well. So I think there's a broad spectrum of other resources that you all can use to kind of inform yourselves. So that's what I have. That's kind of the end of my list of details that I wanted to share with all of you. So this is your meeting now until, who is asking me, like, if we finish early, can we leave? We're almost to that point.
It seems to me like we got to adopt Robert's Rules of Order and appoint at least an interim chair so that we can facilitate the rest of our conversation here, any sort of decision making today. And I would be happy to be at least the interim chair or co-chair, and I'd love to help work on drafting the charter sometime between now and our next meeting. Fits with things I can do.
I was going to say, I concur. I think we should elect a chair, talk about Robert's Rules of Order, but then I would hope that whoever the chair is would also say, let's maybe out of this existing group, let's find some champions around some of these other things so that not everything lies on one person. So we could have a champion around the presentation portion. We can have a champion around, pulling the charter together. Just someone that can take the lead on certain things. So then by the time we do eventually come back together, no one's feeling inundated with trying to do all the things.
Pick when we get back together.
I'll start off and make a motion that we adopt the Robert's Rules of Order.
I would second it.
There's no chair yet.
Yeah.
So
All in favor?
Interim chair.
Well, we need a chair first.
Yeah.
I think I would probably feel more comfortable doing an interim chair until we get a full board to actually we're not imposing the new chair on people that aren't even here that are voting members. So for an interim, I have no issue with Evan on an interim standpoint to get the ball rolling and get us through this initial period. So
Second that.
okay.
For a motion, then we need to have somebody name.
Excuse me, may I interrupt the group for a moment? Being as we need to track who is making a motion and who is seconding it, for the record, will you please state your name before you make the motion and when you second it?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Buck Taft, my motion is to, thank you, to have Evan Nordby serve as the temporary or interim, thank you, interim chair until the full board is seated.
And Horace Dunham seconds that motion.
Can I ask, is there time for discussion on that?
Yeah, now you discuss.
Okay.
So my discussion is about the interim. So we have a time period so far that we don't have a full committee. So ours is our interim chairman interim only until we get a full committee, or until we get another 4 members or 5 members, or because it could take time to get 18 members, I believe, 19 members. So just a little clarity on time period for that interim, and then interim maybe become
The next meeting, just the next meeting.
We've got a comment on this.
Okay, Ms. Rubin, go ahead and speak. Hold on, we're not able to hear you through the speaker. 1 second. I hear her through.
It could also just be interim until such time as we
Can't hear her through the thing though.
It doesn't have to be based on a calendar date. I like that.
Do you need to get off of your? Maybe. Larry, can you speak? Let me see if it's working for you online, just really quick. Yeah, we can't hear Larry either. Okay, we're gonna get IT. Larry and Ms. Rubin, we will get back to you in a moment.
Can they chat the questions?
I don't know. They're trying to speak, but the speaker's coming through something else, not this. So they can hear everything, but we can't hear what they're saying.
But can they put it in the chat so you can?
Okay, they can hear everything. Oh, ask to put the motions in the chat?
Yeah.
Let me ask. Okay, let me ask. Or comments. I'll do that right now.
They might be trying to vote.
Yeah.
Ms. Rubin says she recommends to have Ann continue to be the interim chair. I don't know. I'm just letting you know what she's saying in the chat. And I'm waiting for Larry to comment.
So, well, I'm going to restate your
Well, I'm waiting to hear what Larry says.
Yeah.
Then I have a question about.
Yeah, Larry, please type direct message to me, and then I'll relay it to the group.
Ann could do that because she's not even been appointed as a non-voting member. So I don't know.
But I am staff support. So
Yes.
I will always be staff support.
Larry wants the motion on the floor to be repeated.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear him, Larry? Yes.
The motion was to have Evan Nordby serve as the interim chair until we get a full board that can vote on permanent. Kind of changed it a little bit, but I don't know. We haven't really discussed.
for clarification. I don't know.
Yeah, we're not sure what the end date would be, if it's the September meeting or if it's when we get a full board or a partial board. We're still kind of debating that.
And Larry says, and now we have another suggestion to make Ann the interim
Yeah.
chair. Larry, are you saying you make that suggestion as well? No, he's just trying to understand what's going on. Okay. So Larry, do you have an opinion on the motion? And we're fixing the audio right now.
I think discussion can continue. There's no reason
I
that.
was going to say, Ann, I think you'd make a great chair, but number one, now you'd have 2 jobs instead of just staff support. And number 2, if we do what we're supposed to do, eventually we're going to get into a situation where we might not be on the same side of the table as WashDOT, and that's going to make it uncomfortable for you, and I don't want to do that to you.
Agreed.
I agree with that comment. I think WashDOT is really kind of a staff to us, and I don't think that, as much as I believe in Ann and known her for so many years. I don't believe this is the job that she should have within this group.
That's not fair to you.
Okay, Larry, Larry, can you try to speak again? Now it looks like the audio should be fixed.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. I was just trying to type as fast as I could. I was just trying to make sure that we were understanding where we were at in the dialogue, because I understood there was a motion. Should serve as chair. So I just wasn't sure where we were at in the process of our dialogue. So we're discussing the motion
Yes.
that was made to establish an interim chair. Okay, just wanted to make sure. What I would suggest, if anyone's amenable to this, is that we could time box this. And as an example, we could say we're going to establish an interim chair for the next 90 days unless otherwise extended or modified by a majority vote of the board members present.
I would agree with that, especially because if we say we wanted to wait until we had never have a full work group.
That's exactly right.
Instead of putting on time, can we just push it to the next
Say we wanted to
meeting,
wait until we had a full
which could be
work
sooner or
group, we
later?
may never have a full work group.
Instead of putting it on,
Yeah,
instead of putting on time, can we just push it to the next?
to the next meeting. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Which could be sooner or later, just depending.
I would support that.
That's certainly fine with me. Of the voting members present at that time decide.
The amendment to the original motion?
We haven't adopted Robert's Rule of Order yet.
Yes,
We adopted Robert's rules, but not a chair.
But not a
So I
chair.
thought we said we couldn't do it until we had the chair.
the original motion?
We haven't adopted Robert's Rule of Order yet.
Yes,
We adopted Robert's rules,
Yeah.
but not a chair.
but not a
So I
chair.
thought we said we couldn't do it until we had the chair. That's what I thought we said.
Okay. So I would like to amend the original motion that the interim chair will remain there until such time as we have our next full in-person meeting.
I would second that.
Is that at the end of the meeting or the beginning of the meeting? Through the next meeting?
Until the next one is adopted. During the meeting, we might adopt a new chair until a permanent chair is adopted. How's that?
Makes sense.
At that meeting.
It's kind of where we had it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, right, yeah, it was, the original motion was that it was to an interim chair. The clarification was it would remain until the next vote, which left a little open-ended. So then we started talking about time, which then had us starting to talk about the next meeting, but we don't have a meeting schedule, so it's starting to get complicated.
Well, we know it's going to be hopefully no longer than October.
Yes.
Yeah. So can we just keep it simple? Just say interim chair until we vote on it at the next meeting.
So back to the original.
Yes.
Okay. No amendment.
Is that where we are?
I have the motion that Horace will be appointed as interim chair will remain there until the next meeting adopts the permanent chair.
Horace seconded the motion, and then Horace asked to amend the motion that the interim chair would remain there until the next meeting adopts the permanent chair.
That's fine. I think that's next meeting when we adopt a permanent chair.
We need a second on the amendment.
I seconded it. So, all those, any additional discussion?
Hold it to the moment. Well, oh yeah, I guess if there is any additional discussion.
It's all those in favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Any, Larry and,
Larry voted aye.
okay, Ms. Rubin, can you turn on your mic and vote, please?
Yes.
The amendment was, so, motion passes.
All right. Okay, well, thank you all. So,
The amendment was the motion.
Bob seconded.
Yeah. So we voted on the amendment of appointing
Now
the
we need
next.
to vote on the motion.
No, that's all done.
Oh, the amended motion.
It's done.
That's done, okay.
All right, well, I'm going to stay seated here at the, here because I have notes and things. I think we should, I would actually put my mediator hat on. And unfortunately, your slides didn't get written down everything that we were going to try to do. They were sort of the headers of your slides. It's draft the charter and a couple of other things. Oh. So, does everyone have a copy of their agenda and want to look in that box about kind of our afternoon agenda? Is there anything that anyone wants to add to that list of things we want to try to accomplish today?
I think we're kind of through with today. I mean, the point was, I think we don't have the people here to make a lot of these decisions, and we need to evaluate and get as far as we can, and then come back at the next meeting and do all this stuff when hopefully we have the rest of the members and they're up to speed on what's going on.
So earlier we talked about identifying people we might recruit to try to fill those other spots. Does somebody want to be a champion of that topic?
Well, and again, I think we're waiting for information to see what positions those are, which ones already have applications, which ones don't. So we have a clearer view on who to go after, because some of them will be Eastern Washington, some will be West, and we don't know.
Oh, wait, is that separate from the non-voting?
Well, the non-voting, it's kind of both, but the voting members, they wanted us to recruit as well, but we don't know who.
And do we have somebody in mind? Who do we say? I know that there's somebody who was interested in being on this board that put in an application, and then I also put in their name, but they're not on yet for whatever reason. I don't know who actually decides those things, but so I guess that's the question: is that as we between now and the next meeting, as people come to mind, do we send those where to staff?
Well, I made a request of staff and double down with Ann about getting that list over to us of the positions that are open and how many applicants have been per so far. And I know that has come from the governor's office. So, again, I'm happy to be the person to say, hey, can y'all get that over to us so that we can finish helping recruit? So that's one. Then I do think for the other part, which is inviting non-voting members, we could probably start having that conversation now. And I'm happy to champion that portion of it just to get the ball rolling. And I did take a picture of the invite non-voting thing, but I don't know if it's in the binder. But if we can bring that back up, that would be great.
I think there's some pretty obvious non-voting member stuff that we can do. We can send a letter to the House and the Senate caucuses and ask them for their selections. Department of Commerce, it sounded like there was a person who does aviation at the Department of Commerce who's kind of the obvious choice. So some of those things we might be able to knock out right away.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to work with, are we doing first names or are we doing last names? My courtroom is always Mr. and Mrs. last name.
That gets a reaction. So Alicia's fine. Do we want to start, maybe we should start going down the list and then people can say if they have any ideas or suggestions for each one and go down the line that way?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the first one, which is representative of WSAA. Open floor. Does anyone know anyone from that group? Have any suggestions for anyone from that group?
I don't know who the current chair is. It's the chair of the alliance.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to just throw out there is you could invite a specific person, or you could just reach out to the president of the alliance and say, will you give us somebody?
The jobs, John.
So John Dobson from WSAA. And again, a suggestion could be just to who to send the invitation to collectively. It doesn't have to be a particular person if no one knows a particular person. So for 2 members of the Senate, I think that was just already talked about, just send it to the chairs of each okay. House and Senate. It really does. Okay. So let's just skip down then. So Representative Eastern Washington MPO.
To me, for either the Eastern Washington slots, we should reach out to someone from Yakima, because, and it's possible there's someone here from Yakima, because at the end of the last commission's process, Yakima Airport had spoken up and said we want to be involved, but your charter says the answer has to be in Western Washington. We are broader, and so it seems like for one of those 2 spots, bringing Yakima on board makes sense, but there may be others that make sense too. So we got 2 spots.
Do you have a group in mind, Ron?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we got council of government mentioned before.
Yeah.
And there's several. Including that, I do know of 2 people in Yakima that apply for the citizen representative. And I think Ann was right. What is the definition of regional? I think it depends on where you look as to what the definition of regional airport is. So I could certainly provide important contact for that.
That would be great.
I think when we.
Larry would like to speak. Larry, go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Jim is an extraordinarily experienced former airport professional. Now he is in charge of running the entire port, but he's been very active in our state association, and is again a very well-seasoned leader, and someone that if we could get him to participate, I would certainly ask the committee to think about him as well as the previous suggestion. Yakima, to just be very upfront about it, is that their approach to the CAC, which was very late in the process and not something that was really able to be considered. To me, I think we know where they stand on their particular feelings with regard to what they could offer, but I get concerned about a single issue kind of representation where I think Mr. Kuntz would potentially have a broader perspective, having worked in Walla Walla as well as Chelan. So just some things to consider with regard to the Eastern Washington.
Just a point of clarification.
Walla Walla.
Talking about representative of the Eastern Washington MPO, you're talking about the representative of the Eastern Washington Regional Airport?
Yeah, sorry, I must have got ahead of the conversation there. And when someone brought up Yakima, I thought we were on the issue of the regional airport.
Because I think there's a way to do both here. I think for the MPO, that could be from Yakima, but I absolutely agree with you. If we're talking about representative of Eastern Washington Regional Airport, Mr. Kuntz is definitely do both. I agree with you 110% on that one.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Eastern Washington Regional Airport, Mr. Kuntz is definitely, I agree with you 110% on that one.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
One thing things I would like to suggest as we're kind of compiling this list is that what I plan to do after we've done all this is email the entire work group just to make sure I got my notes correct and know who, and also make sure that I have the right contact information for each of these. I would propose, once we get through that part, like extend an invitation to be considered, so it wouldn't be like a instant come on, so that if we're inviting 2 or 3 different entities per, and then getting those responses back, and then as a group, the next time we come together, we can vet that list together.
One, I like the idea. We have to talk about use of email related to public meetings. So, yeah. And it was a technical question. Are we going to get WSDOT or email addresses, or is there a way we can get email addresses that can be, since we're covered by the Public Records Act, doing all this, that are managed in accordance with the Public Records Act?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Alicia, was your goal to get those together and have the group send them out, or you get them together and then hand them to WashDOT and have them send the official emails out?
That part.
Second one, okay. If you'd ask about that, Ann, I think that's the, and I think, Evan, that's kind of where you were going with that. We got some names, we give them to you.
Yeah.
You find out the right way to send those out, and then we'll see what they say back.
So at least for right now, it would filter through staff to address the public records situation.
And Evan, there's not a problem with us for, I know Larry would be willing to talk to Jim Kuntz just to give him a heads up that something might be coming his way. That's okay, right?
Yeah.
Quick phone call. I can call John Dobson. There are a couple different ways we can do it. Rob said he's willing to give us a couple names for Yakima groups, and we can do that too. So, okay.
If we don't get anyone from one of the Yakima groups at one, I'm happy to reach out to the Benton Franklin Council of Governments as well. If we need someone, I'm happy to do that, but see what happens.
Redundancy of systems.
Yeah, the issue only arises when members of a board like this start it's been construed, if there's an email group that involves multiple members of the board, that is itself a public meeting. And so, yeah.
So I wanted to filter all through staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. But was the way that I was thinking about this okay with the rest of the group as far as trying to compile that, we'll eventually send those invitations out, but it won't be like if they say yes, they're instantly in. It's yes, they would like to be considered. And then when we come back together for our official meeting, that will be one of our agenda items, is to review that list, have discussion, and then identify which ones we want to make the official invite to.
And when we went through these slides originally, the non-voting members, that doesn't have to go any further than us. That doesn't go to the governor's office.
Nope.
So that's my goal.
Nothing against the governor's office, but
So that's my goal, is that by the time we have our next meeting, we will have a list to discuss and choose from to extend those invitations.
All right. That takes care of most of those.
So then we're down to Western Washington MPO and Western Washington Regional Airport.
I have a question on the Western one. We had a lot of folks who visited us today from Thurston County area. Mm-hmm. And then also the Thurston Regional Planning Council got mentioned as we were discussing things as well. I think there is a great concern that area has not been fully represented in the past. And so that would be my suggestion, to look at that. Okay. So that way the folks who are here know they've got somebody that's on their side sitting in.
There's a lot of expertise at PSRC with the aviation based on study, and it's the area that is most constrained for airport capacity, so I might suggest utilizing that expertise. Who was that? Sorry. The Puget Sound Regional Council?
That way at least Pam, one of the groups that could come talk to us if we didn't make them a non-voting member?
Absolutely, they will, yeah.
Okay.
That's all I For now, so I'll like I said, I'll send something out to the group. It'll probably be more like of in a input survey form to put in these contacts that you guys are all thinking about with their information. So it's just kind of all in one place.
Anybody have a suggestion for Western Washington Regional Airport?
I'm always going to say Painfield.
I know a guy at Painfield.
From us,
I already emailed Brett.
Okay.
the standpoint that Olympia was mentioned, and I know their stance on it, but I don't know if that's a good idea or not.
What is their stance?
Well, I believe it's not going to Olympia is that's what I thought I read in the newspaper. But it's just one of those that it's a community that's affected, and it could give that community maybe a voice. I don't know. It's just a thought. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Permissible. We don't have to accept it.
Yeah.
The current airport manager of Olympia was also down at Kelso Longview before, so he's not just Olympia centric. He's got experience in Washington State already.
Larry raised his hand again. Go ahead, Larry.
Potential representative. They have done a number of studies that are very relevant to the work that we are going to pursue. And I think the other part of that is that if I'm also not, I'm going to be very cautious about inviting groups on such as Thurston County, since we'll just use that example, since that was one that was raised, or Olympia as another example, because they have already, I think in many cases, taken a position either publicly or even through electeds with regard to aviation capacity matters. So I don't think that we would be in a good position to receive input with those types of declarations that have already been made. So I want to be very careful about that. I think Puget Sound Regional Council, being a regional agency and having done work related to regional aviation capacity, would be a very, very good resource for us to consider having on the committee.
I tend to agree with what.
Very, very good resource for us to consider having on the committee.
I tend to agree with what Larry said, and I'm not sure that we're looking for partisans who have a stake in the issue, or people who are smart, have expertise to bring to the table and could be a problem solver. Even though I know that they represent a constituency, I still think that this group would be better served having people with knowledge and a problem-solving background as opposed to a partisan in the issue. To that end, I might suggest, I've heard that Bremerton is one of the sort of airports that's kind of in the mix, and we might reach out to them too.
Bellingham.
Just have a clarifying question for Washdot Aviation. Alicia, you mentioned a person at Painfield that will be a tenant, right? So these positions, the representative, can it be a tenant of an airport if they're in the business of passenger operations, or does it have to be a sponsor? Because the airport sponsor is Snohomish County.
I forgot about that.
It says a representative of the airport. So I guess maybe it would be up to the airport to say, do they represent us or not? And while you're talking about that, I just heard a bunch of names of different Western Washington airports.
Yeah, they can hear you online.
I don't know what all of these are. I just heard a lot of discussion of a lot of different Western Washington airports, so I definitely want to make sure that you're not forgetting Boeing Field and Payne Field, which are important parts of this. And once again, we don't want to have, or we don't need to have, every airport manager in Washington State on here. But those perspectives of some of these airports are again, ones that I would recommend inviting as SMEs to talk about what your airport is planning to do in the future and that kind of thing. So either on the group or not, they're going to be important.
And again, we're not making final decisions today. We're just tossing out names and contacts and going from there.
So, does anyone else have any more suggestions for any of the people to potentially reach out to fill the non-voting member spots?
And if you don't have it on the top of your head, then I'll send that email out to everybody, and I'll have this list in there for people to submit names.
That's the thing about email is you can't email the whole group. Or,
I will have staff email
Right.
the group with a link to a form that they can fill out for all of this so that it all comes back into one thing. Instead of having multiple emails going back and forth.
Yeah.
When I say email, I am referring to staff.
Okay. Okay. So we've covered the non-voting members. And then you're going to send us out, or staff's going to send us out a list of the slots that are still open for voting members. So, right?
What was on the list, and I will send that to you, are the slots that are currently still open. During lunch, I was asked to also send a list of if there are slots that there aren't any applications in the hopper already. So that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm done with that part.
Great. Developing a charter, or I should say developing a draft charter, perhaps for consideration at the next meeting by the membership, and then whatever new members we add by the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to know if there are other organizations within the state that have a charter similar to ours. I mean, I think we don't need to start from scratch and develop our own. Let's find one that works for somebody else. It doesn't even have to be for the state. If somebody knows of a charter for an operation of a group similar to this, not exactly like this, because there's never been one like this, probably never will be again. So let's find something that's similar, and then let us look at several of them if you can find them, and send them to us from the state. And then we can modify it. We have an attorney on board. I think he understands how to do this, I hope. And we can go from there.
I don't want to misrepresent, but your roles here, but is that something that you as the interim chair could do what Oris is suggesting, to look around and at least do the first step draft for us to talk about the next meeting?
Yeah, I had thought about using as a, I have not read in detail the CAC charter. Looks like there's a lot of substance in there, that our substance is different than their substance. But as far as an outline of like points to hit, like the headings, and then we can look for other organizations like that who might have something similar. I'm not certain what those might be, if anyone has any ideas. And then who else would want to work on that with me? Is the other question, without it becoming a public meeting.
I'm good for helping with editing, but not so much with the substance. But I could be a bounce-off person for read-throughs.
Well, we're not looking for a draft. Right? We're looking for multiples that we can look at and then work on together. Is that what you were?
I kind of like having a draft, just because then we can. I've just found it helps to have something up on the wall that you can throw darts at than to try to have too many chefs in the kitchen. Because until we all vote on it and agree with it, a draft will remain a draft.
Having a draft that could be circulated among the membership ahead of the next meeting, that then can be edited at the meeting. But versus starting from sort of a blank page at the next meeting, but with examples, is.
And that's a question also, is that we're supposed to, you mentioned something about a December, we owe somebody something in December. So,
We tell them that we've learned our agreement, we have our members, and we're moving forward.
there you go.
It'd be short and sweet. Yeah.
Nice to say that we at least had a draft, if not an approved
And have 8
charter.
members.
Right.
We can do that.
Yep, get loaded.
Yeah, there's something about the military request to eliminate areas because of military installations.
That was part of it, yeah.
Are you looking for an answer for me
Just
about the December report?
yeah. Well, considering we're still short 8 members and some of us have to be reactivated, as it were, is that date going to hold? Would it be more important for them to get something short and sweet and to the point, like Oris is saying, or are they going to say, okay, we got to load this thing up, so we're going to push that date back? What's your feeling? Your crystal ball?
This is a report to, is this working? Can people hear as far as it? Okay. This is a report to the legislature, so it's supposed to accomplish 2 things. One, be the first annual report to the legislature about what the work group's doing, but then 2, specifically address military airports that if you're planning on considering those, and given that the group isn't necessarily considering building a new airport right now, and I'm going to just peek behind the veil a little bit, that particularly I think what the legislature is looking for is state of Washington is no longer looking at taking over JBLM. But I think if they're asking for a report, and this is now a kind of short time frame, if your report ends up being, we understand the assignment and we're not ready to answer it now, I mean, what are they going to do? Fire you?
You said that there are subject matter experts from JBLM on the military airspace issue that might be there to speak.
Yes.
That be something we can set up ahead of the next meeting?
Absolutely.
And we can have it at the next meeting.
Yep.
And then at least whatever report we do write on December 1st can rely at least in part on some fact finding that we've already done, which would be great.
I concur.
I'll make a pitch to you, Ed. As far as your charter that we're talking, our charter, I should say, that we're talking about, I'll work with you on that charter if Oris works with me to help find examples throughout the country or world that have done similar. People to talk to, find some boilerplates that have been done, take those boilerplates and adjust them to what we think we're doing as a draft. You work with me on that, I'll work with Evan on that. Okay.
Does the San Diego committee have
This was a couple of years ago. The one that I have now, the one that I chair there now, I'll be there next week, but I don't think the charter of that would apply to here. I will get it and look at what I think it'd be more like. This is the study that I chaired down there several years ago, which looked to use the various airports within the county, and that one may be more relevant to what we're doing than the one that's in San Diego. There is an advisory committee that is it's made by law when they decided to have the airport separate from the port. And it has the citizens on it, and it's, again, like this. It names who should, not names the person, but the organizations that should be on it. So that charter may be something along that. And I will get that because I'll be there chairing the meeting next Wednesday. So I'll find out.
Does anybody else want to join the charter drafting sub-work group? It's like,
a small committee.
yeah. Okay. I think we should put off discussion of scope of work and a consultant, other than asking staff to forward the draft until we have a full, more representative committee.
Yep.
Because I think there's some, at least I think about it, there's some want to have the consultant do the right amount of work and not too little and not too much, and respect versus the actual appointed members of the committee. So I don't know if has anybody else worked with a consultant. I haven't, but I've seen processes where, where there's a board and a consultant, and then, the consultant ended up being kind of the driver. Has anybody else had kind of been on a board like this with a consultant?
I've not been on a board, but I've worked with consultants. And I mean, the RFQ will tell them what we want, and that's the least of my concerns on this board. I mean, we got to get it right. That's a big concern, but working with the consultant, you pick the right one, it's easy. You pick the wrong one, you have problems.
On the study we did in San Diego to look at the use of the 16 airports in the county, the consultant really, I chaired it, but the consultant really ran the meetings and got the information that the committee wanted and presented it back to the committee. And they were really the organizers of the presentations when we went to it. But they were a major part of it. We told them what we wanted to see, and then they put it together and brought it back to us. So they were an integral part. And again, I'd like to see what its RFQ is what Anne's talking about sending out. I think the qualifications aren't as much as once we decide what it is we want, to see their request for the proposal we put out. That's when really the rubber meets the road, when we tell them, okay, here's what it is, and then let them decide on how they're going to bid on that. And if I'm not mistaken, we're in a state organization. We're not going to just be able to pick one without having a competitive bid. Am I correct, Ann?
I don't think you can use price as a driving factor
No,
on the qualifications.
Yeah, qualifications. But the request for qualifications is different for a request for the proposal. Mm-hmm. You got to see if they're qualified to even make a proposal on it. Is the way I've always done it.
I thought the you put out there, everyone, you get your scope of I want A, B, C, D, E, F done. It's in the RFQ. They tell you what their qualifications are, and if they can meet said stuff, then you make the selection based off of their proposal. You can have an interview process, the whole thing.
I'm not sure state law lets you do that. It could be. I'm just.
Dan's got something to say.
Yeah. The Washington state process is pretty much what Buck just talked about. So, Oris, I agree with you because I've worked in a lot of different states and done the RFQ/RFP process. But in Washington, you will be making a selection from an RFQ. Yeah.
Does anyone else want to talk about the consultant issue at all? And do we have a consensus essentially tabling that issue until a further meeting?
And Mr. Chair, I love calling you that. Just so that everyone's aware, we do have 2 consultants that are joining today because they were interested in seeing this process and what you were all talking about. So there are already some that are interested. And you know who you are.
Andy, you said you had a draft of an RFQ that you would put together?
Yes, and I will be sharing it with all of you.
Okay, so I saw a lot of nods around the room. This isn't being transcribed, so I don't have to tell you have to talk for the record. So we're going to move on from the consultant issue. And that brings us to the next step slide, which is not. Okay,
We already hit next.
That's
step.
pretty much it.
That's what
Yeah.
we were just talking about. This
Right.
was the next steps.
Right.
Yeah.
Picking a next meeting date.
Go one more. And I don't think we can do that until we've got appointees.
Do we have the new batch of appointees?
Right.
That's what it's kind of we're in a waiting game until things get filled and then.
Which
Ms. Rubin said in the chat, should we elect a vice chair in the event the chair isn't available?
We have. I mean, the thing is, we're in limbo.
Why don't we ask
until
her?
we get
Well, we're
the interim chairs to help us bridge this gap so we can get some balls rolling until we get everybody sat. We're not going to know when everybody's sat. I'm assuming Christina will probably send out another email like this one saying, let's meet on this day, or this is the day the meeting is. And I think we kind of have to have it be driven how it is until we get the team, the process, the individuals lined up, then we start running the show. I think we should somewhat have it until we don't know when these people are coming on, and it's just we're here trying to do stuff and we don't even have everyone, and it's just
Current chair is only the interim chair is only the chair to the end of this meeting, really, and then it's got its tasks. Everybody else has their tasks, and this only comes up again at the next meeting where we will reconsider the interim chair role.
Yeah.
I don't see the need for a vice chair.
I concur. Interim vice chair.
But I do think we should set a meeting date, at least so that any new appointees.
I think
can
it's
tell
hard
them.
when we don't know when they're going to fill these roles, and then if you're buying airfare or you're getting hotel, I think it's best to get these filled where it comes clearer. Right now, it's not clear. There's no clue when the governor is going to fill this, unless we say we want to move forward with or without these new members, which I don't know how much we can move forward.
I kind of think it's a case of chicken and egg. So I think we should set a date so that hopefully that will help the governor's office go spur it on, say, look, we're having our next meeting on October whatever, and by this time we want to be able to know based on that, staff letting us know who's applied or how many people have applied, what's still open. So I think the date could drive the action as opposed to waiting for the action to drive the date.
And we have the December 1st deadline in the statute, too, to at least issue some sort of a report.
So I think that's the way to go, just to work backwards from that sense. Say, okay, we know we have a set date that we're planning towards, so then that can spur the action of the other things.
Well, and also we can talk philosophically. I mean, does this group want to meet every 60 days, every 90 days, every 30 days? Before we even pick a date, because you're right, we owe somebody something in December. So
if we're saying September, October, that our manual puts us on track for a quarterly, at least for now. So 3 months from now will be October. So that's one. I think September might be a little tricky. I'm someone that doesn't have children, but I would think that have kids and going back to school and stuff like that. I think September could be iffy.
So like early October?
Yeah.
My biggest concern is just we're all busy.
Yeah.
These people are all busy, and making sure we can actually do something in a meeting instead of sitting here looking at each other. Where's everybody at? That's my biggest concern, is making these meetings worthwhile with substance and accomplishing things instead of not and being unsure. And that's my biggest. I just don't want to waste my time or anyone else's time.
Let's not meet again until there's a full meeting.
Who is our
So
I didn't hear the motion.
sorry, no, I was about to ask if that was a motion, but then you.
I was just asking who our liaison with the governor's office is to get a solid answer about this, because we're talking. Excuse me.
Yeah, finish up, and then Larry, go ahead and speak up.
Yeah. So as everybody here is alluding to, we all have a busy life. We're volunteering our time, so I'd like to have some serious feedback about what the target date is to fill the rest of the vacancies, so we can go ahead and do the work that we're interested in doing.
As far as
There was a.
concerned, we don't have a full board yet. There's your report. Oh, yeah. I mean,
There was the Spokane.
Larry.
Larry, go ahead, Larry.
Board or not. The reality is we don't control that process, and it will either happen or not happen based on whatever sense of urgency that the governor's office has to address this. I would just caution us to not qualify when we're going to meet based on whether or not we have a fully constituted board. We will need to move forward at some point, and it may or may not be with a fully constituted board, but that one is above our ability to direct. So I would just set a meeting that we think is a reasonable time for us to meet to continue our work, and certainly, we want to advocate as strongly as we can for the board to be completely appointed as soon as possible. But at the same time, not controlling that, I think we just need to establish a meeting date that we're comfortable meeting regardless of what the status of the appointments are to the board.
Is that a motion?
Establish a meeting date that we're comfortable meeting regardless of what the status of the appointments are to the board.
All right, is that a motion?
I don't think we need to make a motion.
To a requirement to have a fully constituted board.
I don't want to attach, I'm against attaching a meeting date to a requirement to have a fully constituted board.
I agree, because even if we had every member identified, the chances of getting everybody at any specific date was zero. You're not going to ever do it. So pick a date, we'll get the most we can, and we'll have a bigger number than we have today.
I'm willing to make a motion, but I have a question of whether today was a Thursday meeting. Does Thursday meetings make more sense, or do Friday meetings make more sense for both for us and for staff? It doesn't matter.
I mean, if you want to have them in Eastern Washington, I'm happy with Friday. I mean,
Well, we can talk about
we're
this.
traveling. I think having it if we're coming to Western Washington, it's fair to have it during the work week. For me, time doesn't matter. You want to have it morning, afternoon, evening, I'm open. But I prefer Fridays to be a no, and I'm good with Mondays as well.
Well, then I would like to make a motion that we set the next meeting for October 3rd, which is a Thursday.
Everyone get your calendars.
I'll second that motion.
Chris Mueller, by the way.
Is there a second to the motion for an October 3rd meeting? Oh, that was the second. Okay.
I second it.
Okay.
There you have the comment.
So let's discuss a motion to meet on Thursday, October 3rd, as we all scroll through our
meeting
phone calendars.
Thank you again.
Meeting date, and then that will give us again the flexibility to move off of that if for some reason we think it's in the best interest to do so. So if the motion was to set the meeting date tentatively as October 3rd, that would be acceptable if others agree.
I can amend that.
To set the meeting date tentatively as October 3rd, that would be acceptable if others agree.
I can amend that motion to tentative meeting date of October 3rd.
So my only thought on that is I don't think we can have a tentative meeting because then we can't have a vote when we're not in session to then adopt it as the actual meeting. So we should probably adopt it as the actual meeting date and then change it if necessary by some other means. Because it can't ever move from tentative to actual and give public notice of the public
This
meeting.
has to be publicized, so
Yeah.
we just can't say it's tentatively.
Okay. So,
Do we have to decide the dates of our own meetings?
Yes.
yes.
But it ended up also being part of charter is the frequency of the meetings.
The meetings can be changed. They just need public notice. I think it's 48 hours, 72 hours. I'm not.
Yeah.
But they can be changed. They just need to be noticed. The public needs to be notified.
I don't remember in that vetoed section 3 if there was the committee shall meet on a certain basis.
No, that's part of our charter.
Yeah,
That's what we're
that's
going to
part of the
create.
charter.
Is there anybody that,
Is it easier to just say we would meet every first Thursday or Friday instead of picking a specific date up front? That way you have opportunity to agendize.
Since we don't have a charter yet, we haven't. That'll be part of the charter that we work on at the next meeting. This kind of is a one-off until we determine through our charter process how often we're meeting.
is October 3rd a no-go for anybody for sure?
Well, I have one caveat to that.
I'm listening.
My caveat would be, because we are statewide, we also need to consider where, in addition to the day. So October 3rd might work well for someone on this side, maybe not on the other side, and vice versa. So I think we need to...
Get some wine.
I'm down with that. So I'm saying, so we need to factor in the location with the date that we choose. So October 3rd sounds like it's working for most, but I think we need to determine too, are we trying to come back here? Are we trying to go on the east side? What are we trying to do?
Are you offering an amendment to the motion for an October 3rd meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Do you want to specify location? Or maybe we should let's ask.
Well, it's a discussion question.
I know a couple places that WashDOT could probably free up for us around the state. Do you have anything that's, well, I know there's a spot in Wenatchee that we could use.
We can really go anywhere. Like you said, WashDOT and the state has, meeting locations. We selected this one because we know that all the technology works with the people that are recording it and everything, or, theoretically. So that's what if you just give us a location, we can come up with a facility that'll meet our needs.
Is there something that's still west of the Cascades, but east of here? Something like closer up to North Bend, that kind of area?
The state fire academy.
Marshall, do you have any input on that?
When you think about this fully constituted group of 30 plus people and all the public that they want to attend, it's bigger than most any of our region or office facilities can comfortably fit, so we would be going to a hotel or some facility like this, is my guess. But we can find something in almost every city. There's the hotel that's in Palmy Falls. I've attended conferences there before, which is pretty easy off the interstate, but it's going to, it'll have a cost, but we cover that.
For just the sake of being easy, can we just, the next one, do it the same? Just do it here and get the people here.
How about we just delegate this to the chair and the staff, and we give them general direction about where we want it, like Western Washington, Olympia, Wenatchee, and then they can figure out where we would go.
So we've had discussion on the amendment to the motion to add a location. So the sponsor of the amendment to the motion, do you want to?
I move to amend the initial motion to add location generally to the date suggestion.
On October 3rd, Wenatchee, somewhere between Wenatchee and Tumwater? How do we say that to keep it simple?
Western Washington, Central Washington, Eastern Washington.
Yeah. Western Washington. I'm with Buck's willing to drive from Tri-Cities. I'm certainly willing to drive from Moses Lake. If we want to keep it simple and just do it here again, I'm okay with that. If Larry could make it, Larry would fly into Sea-Tac and come down, and one of us could even give him a ride. So I'm okay with being in the exact same place too, just to make it happen.
Okay. So, Alicia, your motion is to have it here again?
Sure.
You're amending your motion? Okay. Okay. Is that a friendly amendment to the motion for the October 3rd meeting? Accepted by the maker of that motion?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All right. Let's call the vote. All in favor of an October 3rd meeting, Thursday, here again. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Carries unanimously. So, October 3rd here.
Was Larry's opposed or was his?
That was an aye. It was an aye.
Normally the same sign, but.
That's why I don't like that. Okay. And then as far as setting an agenda for that meeting, if you have a contact with the military airspace people, can we ask them if they can come in?
Absolutely.
And we'll have a draft charter to review, hopefully some non-voting members to be interested to invite. And is there anything else we want to add to sort of our tentative agenda for October 3rd? Public comment? RFQ for consultative media. Yeah, at least the status of that.
Well, I think that's it, because if we want to get the charter done that meeting, I don't want to load it up too much.
Yeah.
Well, I get it having an important talk, though, absolutely. That shouldn't take more than 45 minutes.
All right.
Plus conversation.
Is there anything else we want to talk about, either in general or with respect to that October 3rd meeting?
Larry has his hand raised. Go ahead, Larry.
Not with respect to the October 3rd meeting, so if there's anybody that would like to talk about that, I would please defer my comment.
Nope, go ahead, Larry.
Okay. I want to make sure that we are clear about media inquiries and public statements. And so, for the time being, I think that we should refer all media inquiries to WashDOT Aviation and for WashDOT's public information office. With regard to that, I don't think we, as members or the interim chair, should be making any statements to the media at the current time with regard to any questions they might have about the committee or this meeting today.
Agree.
Yeah. Anyone else want to talk about that? Because I agree with that too.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, not connected with that, but I do have another comment for the group. I just wanted to share with everybody that we got a message from Zoomland from Representative Dent, who was one of the drafters of this legislation. And he says, "Great meeting, everyone. Thank you for your enthusiasm and willingness to tackle a difficult issue." So your good work is already being recognized.
Thank you, sir. All right. Anything else we want to talk about?
I have already sent staff the link for those suggestions. So hopefully they'll get that out to you relatively soon.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Horace moved 2 seconds. Now for the record,
I don't.
who was our second? I'll be second. Oh, Alicia will be second. She spoke up before I did. Horace for the motion. Alicia for the second.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you all on
Yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah.